So I guess it's just a follow-up on this caboose I did for a friend. And the only thing I was really wanting to do here is put a current keeper in it. And then in the previous video, I mentioned I had to stack up 6 of these 40 thousandths thickness styrene. I've got a couple sheets of the black. So I did end up removing 1 on each end. So there's 5 stacked up there. So I didn't do the math, but 5 times 40 thousandths to get that that plastic piece lifted and get the board closer to the top. Because unfortunately, when you do the consist to use the magnet, you wipe over the top, it's in the center and it's not going to pick it up if you put the magnet up here. So I've been having luck somewhere in this corner, but before it just didn't work. And again, it frustrates me. This one's done and it's for a friend, but for people out there that spend that kind of money on these things, and for one, the sound is so muffled. I mean, they'll blow the horn now. It's day and night. Then the clickety clack. And then the brakes. See, like that air let off, you had to have pretty good hearing to hear it before I put that slot in there. So again, day and night. Now there is one other thing that I did real quick that I'll go through if it's something you feel like you would like changed on yours. Because from the factory, one does your bell. I disabled that because there's not a bell on this caboose. So when I press 1, you're not going to hear anything. On 2, you're going to hear your long whistle like you normally would. On 3, from the factory, that turns on one of your lights. And I'm glad this works out this way because it's maybe a little bit less confusing. On the bottom side of the board, there's a little clip on each end where this plastic riser thing is. You can carefully pop that off and look underneath, and you'll see there's like 4, I think, I've got it on there now, and I used a very tiny bit of CA because the shell was coming off just a little too easy for my liking. But on the board, you're going to see just on one side, there's 4 solder tabs coming out. The one that's furthest to the end, I'm just going to guess it's on this end. The one furthest to the left, if you were to pop that board and look underneath it, it says FX3. The next one's FX4, FX5, FX6. You're not going to be able to do much with 5. You can remap it, but you can't separate the interior lights from any other set of lights. When you press that function 5, it's going to turn on your interior lights. I think you can probably see it. There we go. Yeah, they're much brighter than they are on the chassis for some reason. Anyway, I just leave that 5. So the only thing I wanted to convey is I played the Longhorn, but when you get it from the factory, F3 turns on one of these. You've got a red and green light up here on both ends. And on the Union Pacific, it is up here on the top. It's not on the end. Okay, so I remapped it. The first thing I did is, well, I did solder all these. I don't like those little push-on connectors. I think they're garbage, so I soldered everything on. What I did is moved the wire from the far left and just went forward to the right, as far as you can go to the right, and soldered it to that one. And you'll know it because there's 4 tabs, and that 4th tab is FX6. So now when I press 6, this green light comes on this end. In your manual, it says lighting effect. And it says lighting effect for function 3 as well. But in doing that, by moving that wire over to 6, I can still turn my light on. And then over here, I didn't change anything. That's function 4. See, it turns that green light on and off. And then when you press 0, it turns on the red light, and it's controlled by your direction. So it's on the opposite side right now. And having trouble focusing. And when I change direction, there it is. Okay. So if you've gone through and you've moved that wire where it was, just go to the far end pad out of those 4, and you can solder it onto there and do it like that. What do you gain? Okay. This, I don't want it to sound confusing. I'm going to pull my book up here in a second and show you just real quick what I did. All right, here's the mapping on your sound card. Function mapping. First of all, to my knowledge, this Caboose has no bell. So you go to F1, because if you press function 1, you're going to hear a bell. So there's a value of 8 in there. And I'm pretty sure I just put a 64 in there. Spook the livestock. What that does, you go, let me back up. You go under CV35, and instead of an 8, we'll see where it's bold, because that's default, I come over to 64 and enter a value of 64 under CV35. That gets rid of your bell. And it does not spook the livestock. And then the only other thing you have to do is go down to CV37, see function 3. It did, let's see, it did just a light. So to be honest, I don't think I put it on, it was 8. Yeah, the default is 8. So when you press FX3, because the wire was on that tab, it would light it. But you would get no sound. And that's fine. But when you move that wire over to FX6, you don't have to map or program anything. Your light's still going to turn on just the way it did before. But instead of hitting FX3, you press FX6, and that green light will come on. So I only did 2 things here. CV35 made it a 64, so there's no bell. And then for function 3, I went to CV37 and changed it to 16, so I can reclaim the short whistle. And this thing is loud. That's the factory setting of 192. And it's like I say, you can always turn them down. But when they're in the weight and the shell's on it and the weight doesn't have that slot in the bottom from the factory, you're losing a lot of sound. By the time you get it to the layout, you're not going to hear much. But like I always say, you can always turn them down. CV 128 is your master volume on the Caboose and your Soundtracks equipment. So I just wanted to share this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask or just play this back. I usually say everything twice anyway, but don't let it spook you. It's not a hard thing to do. You're just moving a wire over. If you feel a little better about it, you pop it off, carefully pop it off those little tabs, and then you can see underneath it where it says FX3, FX4, FX5, and FX6. Like I said, the only one you have to move is the one that if those, they'll be on this side. If it's on this end, you got 4 of them. It's the only place where you're going to have 4 coming out the side. Just take the one that's on the far left. That is FX3. And then you move 1, 2, 3 over. And that's as far as you can go. And you'll solder it. Or you can use that plastic tab if you have to. I don't like them. And that's all you're doing with the wiring part of it. Like I said, I used 40 thousandths styrene, and I just cut some strips, and I went into detail. Besides, I've got lots of info because this is my 3rd one, and pretty sure my chassis has 4, but it's got a flat top, so I got it a bit easier. On this one, you have to kind of, there. I've been having luck with like this corner up here. So when you hear that chain drop like that, and you've got your address, not the Caboose address, but your locomotive address pulled up, then all you have to do is hit F8 4 times, and you'll hear an air let off like a hiss. And that's it. You're consisted. So when you start to turn up your throttle on whatever address the locomotive is, or your consist number, if you have an advanced consist, the Caboose is going to do everything the same. It'll start to do clickety-clack when you apply the brakes and all. And then when you're done with the Caboose, I always like to take it out of the consist. And what that sounds like is somebody taking, well, there, I'm not sure why it did it on its own, but you have 1 minute to press F8 4 times. And I am guessing in this case, that's why, if you time out. So let's see here. Try it again where it does both with the magnet. There we go. Okay, yeah, give it a few seconds just to, it's looking for the F8s, but I'm not going to give it any because I'm not consisting. There it goes. You have to work for it, but it's not bad. The sensor just happens to be in the center, and it's on this board down here, and that's why I'm lifting them up. So anyway, if you go through, I'm probably going to link this to the first video where I'm basically saying how I really feel about this, because It's too expensive, and it is a good looking caboose. It's just, they really missed the mark on some areas here when it comes to the some of the lighting on them that had lighting on the ends, and well, not having a slot in the bottom. That's a huge hit, and it's not Soundtrax's fault because it's just an alteration of their sound card decoder that you can put in anything. They made them custom for Athearn, and Athearn just made some bad choices. And if you have one that has lights on the end, or barely, then you know what I'm talking about. And I do have videos. If you do, there's only one chassis on the initial run. The number was C3930, and it had the lights from the factory on the end. Now I installed them on this, but yeah, I go through the procedure on how to brighten those up. So feel free to just bounce around on my YouTube, and I've got other train stuff. Hopefully it helps. I just, if I see any place where I can improve a product, I do. And there's a lot of times that I'm just not satisfied with something because I know it holds so much more potential. And Soundtrax is an awesome company. That's 100% my opinion. I think I mentioned I did wait, and I just got the Current Keeper in today. It was a Current Keeper 2, and I don't have a photo of it, but it is a bit more square than the regular one because these are pretty tight, especially this guy over here. On video, you might not think it, but when you start messing with these, and this one's got some little seats in it. Mine's got at least 3 or 4 seats. I painted them, and it's got a table. And then the middle has the magnet. Yeah, you don't have much room. So the regular Current Keeper will not fit. So that's why I went ahead and got the Current Keeper 2. And it's just, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. I'll close out by turning this clickety-clack up, and it's been sitting here on the track. We got all the lights on inside now. I'll just let this thing sit here. Before, I couldn't keep power going to this thing, and I don't know why, because I know my track is clean. Maybe the wheels need a little cleaning. I don't know, but I was having a lot of trouble troubleshooting this, and I did notice he's missing. There we go. Yeah, if your dirty spot on the track is that long, you've got bigger issues. And but the Current Keeper does a really good job. It came to me with that missing, and I might have one because I had a chassis and I had to order whatever this, like a glazing or whatever it is. I'll have to take a look and see if they sent more than one. I don't think they did, but if I have one, I'll replace it for them. You got to put these back in the boxes. Sometimes I see people just roll them up, and they get tossed around, and these have way too much detail. They're not your old Athearn blue box. They got a lot of detail on these things. Here's your little generator and all, and it does have like a generator sound on F9. You can turn on and off. Anyway, I just wanted to close this up. Once again, it was longer than I expected, but if you go back to the first video, I'm just going to call this video the same as first, but without a 2 on the end, and you'll see the first part of this, because it seems like I'm seeing a lot more people have the Union Pacific than the chassis. So hopefully, after seeing exactly what I did and talking you through it and showing you exactly what you got to do here, if the bell doesn't bother you, just leave it alone. But I don't know. It just, I don't want to accidentally hit it and people be like, why is there a bell on it? But if you've got some kind of caboose and there's something I don't know, like, oh, that one did, then leave it on there. But I just went in there and just bumped it over to something that I knew that didn't work, the 64. And then again, it was from the factory, it was an 8. I know it says 16 in bold here, but this manual is for when you buy the decoder, just the decoder separately. So it's going to be a little bit different on your one that you purchase, because that decoder is a different decoder. You're going to get paperwork with it like this. And like I said, FX2 is your whistle/horn. And then the rest, they don't really tell you exactly what it is anyway, because it varies on different cabooses. So I told him I'd wait until it's here and he could write in the line FX3. I mean, now it's the short whistle. And that's what it typically is. If I were to look at in the manual here, you would see that's what it normally is. So I just put it back to the way it normally was. And then FX6 was not being used. That's why I moved the wire from FX3 over to FX6. Then there's no effect. It's just on or off. And in doing so, moving the wire you don't have to program a single thing. As soon as you press function 6, that light's going to come on, press it again, it goes off. But that way I was able to come in here, the CV37, and change this from an 8 that it was to the 16 that it should be. And then again, like I said, you can reclaim your horn. All right, well, I hope this helps you guys. I mean, some of them are a little afraid to get in here. Don't be. I mean, I use, it's a pretty nice little solder station. You don't want to use anything like a solder gun, but anything that's got a little tip like that, you can get some pretty inexpensive ones. But that and just some very basic soldering skills, you'll have no problem. And it's gonna look and sound so much better if you can just pop a hole or two in there. Because like I said in the other video, you take the screws out and drop your trucks, and there's 2 more screws on the inside, and most of the detail, well, there's some that stays. You'll end up fighting it a little bit, but as long as you can get it somewhat away, or just have enough control that when you're drilling it, you're not going to blast through and damage anything. 1 or 2 holes drilled in the bottom of that thing, and then on that silvery area of the metal, I just touched it up with black in case anybody's going to be looking at the underside. But again, you can see a little bit of the shininess. That's the speaker. And it looks closer to the bottom than it is. So it's up here a ways. So you don't have to worry about it picking up track debris. Some of these speakers are in locomotives in the fuel tank. And if I can't get to the speaker surface easily, I got a pair of MTHs that are like that. And I just carefully cut their plastic screen thing out completely. And because I know they're going to pick up debris, and then I can go back with some electrical tape or something and lightly dab on the speaker to get those pieces off. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to me thinking their speaker was blown, and it wasn't. It just had debris that was dancing around on the cone. It makes it sound like distortion. Anyway, I've covered all this in many other videos, so I hope this helps. If it does, or you have any questions, let me know. I enjoy helping any way I can in the model industry. Thank you.